listen to fall to the floor.
Hello, welcome back to another ink talk. I really dive deep into things, so my first KWZ inks I was very impressed with. I got more, and obviously you need to look at their iron Gall inks. I think, again, the packaging I'm very, very impressed and pleased with. Very simple, functional. You know, they have the very clear labels on top, IG for iron Gall. You see a little example of the ink. And, of course, you have a date stamp, like the 19th of September, 2016. So we have Mandarin, Gummiberry, and Turquoise. So I like all three of these inks. They share a lot of the characteristics that the other KWZ inks do. They're very saturated. The colors can be quite nice. So let's take a look at how they look on paper. For those of you that may not have seen the bottles of ink that it comes in, I just showed you the outside packaging, but they're all consistent. I think it's excellent. There's no confusion of what ink was in that jar, and also with the very large openings, you can put many different sized pens. It's not limited to that, and it's easy to take all the ink out of the bottle when you're done. So again, kudos to KWZ for doing something very practical and an excellent ink. So here's the three inks on my Fabriano, 85 grams per meter. And again, hopefully I got some sunlight, some LED lights, so hopefully you're picking out the color. Gummiberry is quite unique, kind of purplish, reddish. The Mandarin, here it looks kind of brownish, but it has a very unique characteristics, which we'll look at later. And there's the Turquoise. Both of these, all three of these inks I have in fairly wet nibs, and that's pretty obvious from the way that they look. Let's take a look at some of the spectrography. So this is Gummiberry, and these are two different ones, one of which was dried and the other one was done right after I applied the ink. As you can see, there's a substantial difference as the iron Gall has bound itself to the paper. At least that's what I hear that it does. And it still pushes off some of the color. It looks like obviously not all of that pigment is bound to the iron Gall ink. We take a look at Mandarin. We'll see a very, very similar spectrograph. And again, the dried ink shows a very similar color, not quite as dark as the Gummiberry had. But as you notice, a lot of the orange comes off, and you don't really notice the brown as it looks on the paper. Getting into Turquoise, again, I think it's good, interesting to see the spread of the color. Obviously, you can see, to me, it's kind of aqua, greenish blue, but again, the one that's dried, and this is dried for a couple days, shows a very dark residue, very similar. So the iron Gall seems to be a characteristic which is independent of color, but it does give you some permanence if you need an ink that'll survive water. So one of the other characteristics of iron Gall inks is they change color over time. They change color as they dry and get absorbed into paper. So these have been down here for about an hour. So we're going to lay down a fresh line. As you can see, the color is much more intense in the new ink. As it dries, it will start to move into the color similar to what was seen in the line above. So we're going to do the Turquoise ink, and this is a nice wet broad nib, so we're going to lay down a decent amount of ink. And again, the blue and the turquoise is certainly much more evident. So if you looked at the spectrographs, what you can see is that dark patch occurs over time, oxidation of the iron, some other chemical compositions are going on, but whatever it is, it's quite evident. And to me, the most amazing difference is the Mandarin, because as it goes down, it looks quite light, and not something you might want to use on a day-to-day basis. This is a very wet nib, lays down a lot of ink, but it probably takes about 2 or 3 minutes for the color to eventually come to become stabilized. What I thought I would do is I would show you a line of just the regular turquoise. It's not iron gall. And I think you can see is interesting. It's a similar type of color. And while we're comparing colors and inks, I thought this is a nice Parker 21 that I just recently refurbished. This is the Azure, which I've really gone to like quite a bit, is a nice dark intense blue. So the Mandarin has pretty well dried into its final color. I thought we'd do a nice close-up of how this ink looks. I'm just impressed with how that changes. It's a drastic change as the ink dries and the chemical reaction of the iron gall takes effect. Hopefully you're able to watch that. So now we're going to take a look at water. So we're going to do the usual thing. We're going to put some drops of water, and this ink has been there for a long time. I mean, immediately you notice that the ink does pull up some of the color, which the chromatography, which I've been calling spectrography, but the chromatography also indicated that, so it's nice to see a correlation between the chromatography and what actually happens in real life. And I've not speeded it up or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to let it set for a minute and then come back and wipe it off. So the water sat there for a couple minutes, and as you can see, it's pulled off even more of the pigment. So as we dab off the water, as you can see, it picks up color. So, but it's definitely readable what's left behind. So this does kind of pass the water test, which is what you would expect from an iron gall ink. Here we are on Tomoe River paper, and not any significant difference. Colors might be a little bit more intense than we got with the more absorbent Fabriano paper, but it does still look nice, and I still enjoy the colors. And here we'll lay down regular turquoise just so you can put it in perspective. And we'll lay down another line of Mandarin because I still can't get too much of watching this color change. And there's also a little bit more shading evident on Tomoe River paper than there was on a more absorbent paper. So overall, I'm extremely pleased with the ink, and we'll just do one more writing example and call it a day. So we're going to do the 20-pound cheap Staples copy paper. This is the Delta Israeli pen, which has a beautiful nib on it. I really like it and enjoy it. That was my mistake here. The color is still pretty intense. That's really nice. As we let that soak in and dry. This is my broad Nemosine, which I really love also. Very smooth, lays down a consistent patch of ink. You know, for less than $20 pen. I'm very happy with it, and I got them with a bunch of other nibs, so that's nice. So we take a closer look at this, and let's see what we can see. Now, I don't see feathering. You know, it works pretty good on the copy paper. So we take a look at the back side. Obviously, there's some show through and looks like a little bit of bleed through where the ink got a little bit heavy, but not unexpected for this type of paper with any type of nice saturated ink. So overall, I'm extremely pleased with all my KWZ inks. They're just a joy to use. The intensity is great. The colors are great. So hopefully you get a chance to enjoy some also. So thank you all for watching. As I try to write over the camera. So this is the end of this video. May you enjoy all your pen experiences. Lots of ink. Ciao.